Hello, this video is about trying to image psychic attacks, the psychic world. Imagine that you couldn't hear, imagine you were deaf. If you had sonar like a dolphin, you could make actual pictures out of sound. You wouldn't have to hear speech type sound and make sense of that. You could have actual sonar type pictures, which are like 3D images. You know how people use ultrasound on babies now to see babies in the womb? Well, that's ultrasound. That's sonar. And they're quite exact. You can get a really quite precise picture of a baby before it's born. You can recognise them from the picture. That's how good the picture is these days. They started out fuzzy, those pictures, but they're quite clear these days. And that's from sound. So you can see that something as intangible as sound can be used to make actual pictures, to visualise things. In the same way, obviously, light can do that. If you were blind, if you were from a blind species, like fish that live in caves or something like that, or deep water fish or something that's blind, bats are quite poorly sighted, I believe, and lots of aquatic animals are poorly sighted, I believe. If you had no sight, or if you were blind, you might not even believe that light existed, but it does exist, and it can be shown, it can be visualized using cameras, videos, digitally, or with chemicals, using old-fashioned methods where surfaces were coated with films of chemicals and captured light by reacting to it. Reacted to light which visualized the real world that was reflecting the light. So light and sound can be used to reflect the physical world. Is there some other kind of world that could be visualized in some way? Is there an etheric world? If so, it's probably electricity. We know there's an awful lot of information buzzing around us that we don't even see. Radio waves, TV signals, internet signals, containing countless images themselves. And we capture that electricity on devices like the one that I'm using now and that you're watching now. So we're using instruments now that visualize electricity. Why is it not possible to detect if there is some other kind of world? To be honest with you, I really think it's probably already been done, maybe long ago. And we haven't been told about it because it has not suited those who have this information to tell us. It would be enormously powerful for them to keep it to themselves, so that's what they're doing. There are some creatures that detect electricity. Fish do that. It's not surprising with fish, really, because they live in water which conducts electricity better than air does. So they could well have been making use of electrical stimulation for a long time. And apparently they do, just how you'd expect them to, really, by sensing how close they are to something that is also discharging electricity. Electric eels apparently do this quite well. An electric eel, a big electric eel, has enough power to kill any human being with a shock. They can make a big enough shock to kill a large, healthy man. So they contain a lot of electricity, and they've got a big electric strip that senses electricity running down their sides. Plenty of fish have this little strip, but electric eels have it quite a lot. And I think the most of any fish or aquatic animal. And I bet you that's been studied plenty of times. I bet all this information is known now. Okay, so what I'm saying is, why shouldn't electricity be imaged, captured and imaged in some way? Electricity which might be appearing in the natural world. We already send and receive signals. I think this is because aerials are attuned to particular signals. Would it really be that hard to make an aerial that would capture electricity in the natural world, like a ghost or something? Would it really be that hard to make some sort of electrical sonar that would ping electricity off and see an image, any return or interference? You know, I think, is this how radar works? If a signal is... No, radar works by sensing if a signal comes back again. Or does it work by sensing if a signal is interrupted? Or maybe it would be this... No. It must be by pinging it back again. If it's pinged back, if it's reflected, yeah. But maybe ghosts would absorb the electricity. In that case, you would know that they were there, because the electricity would not be pinged back. Like, you could put a electrically reflective sheet at one end of a room and ping electrons onto it from the other end or something. And if the ghost absorbed electricity, then the picture you would have is of an area where no electrons reached because they were absorbed by the ghost. Or if the electrons were reflected by the ghost, then you'd catch it on the other screen behind you. And, you know, so there must be some way of detecting it. There must be some way of interacting with electricity in the natural world, the way light and sound interact with the physical world. Light and sound bounce off the physical world to create pictures and sound and sonar. And, as I've said, and if there were an electrical presence, there must surely be some way of detecting it. A Geiger counter, apparently they can be used. Why isn't that proof? If there's obviously electricity in a particular area and not elsewhere, that is obviously proof. People will then say it's fake. Well, they would. They absolutely would, because they're just not prepared to accept these things, even if there's proof. So if you don't want to accept something, you just refuse to accept it, don't you? Because you're like that. So, you know, you could actually say to them, come here to this spot and look at this Geiger counter. Bring your own Geiger counter straight from the shop. And nobody's touched and nobody's interfered with. They won't do it. They won't do it. They won't do it. Because they don't want to. But I do. So a Geiger counter is one thing you can do. So apparently they're radioactive then, because it's sensing radioactivity. But apparently Geiger counters can sense ghosts. There's other equipment you can use as well. I'm not sure what it is. I know temperatures can change. How would that be a result of? How would temperature change be a result of something electrical in the environment? That's an interesting question. So, how would that happen? How would that occur? I'm not sure. Temperature change is occurring as a result of electricity. Yeah, that's interesting. If you know the answer to that, please put it in the comments. So, yeah, I think it's probably electrical, this phenomenon. I know they're said to store themselves in their surroundings. If someone's horribly murdered, for example, they discharge a lot of energy in the form of fear and so on. And that sort of gets stored and recorded by things around them, objects around them, like walls and stuff. Apparently this is absolutely true, you know. Scientists will admit that ordinary interactions are stored endlessly because we do affect our surroundings. You know, just like droplets of water that will gradually erode a stone over hundreds or thousands of years. So everything is affected in just tiny ways by ordinary events around them. Maybe tiny ways, very tiny ways, but still affected. And so apparently it's absolutely, perfectly scientifically valid to think that a murder victim would store an awful lot of energy in their surroundings, or maybe in a hostile presence, or and alternatively to that, if people have been very happy for a long time in a location, they can put a good vibe into it, a good atmosphere into it. You know, so what is this effect? I do think there's it's not just sound and so on. I do think it's electrical in some way. And I do think there may be, because I actually think I'm psychically attacked by people at times. In fact, pretty much a lot, really. I think some of my neighbours are psychic parasites and prey on me for energy or whatever. So, what would it be? I do think there must be some. What would it interact? There must be a way of visualising it to prove it's there. All right, even if you can't communicate it with it yet, or maybe some people would say they could. You know, but I'm trying to find a way to prove these things. If apparently, I know some people say that voices can appear on tape recorders that are left alone to capture sounds in the silence, with no one sort of interrupting. If you leave a tape recorder and listen to it all the way through, you can often find that something has been recorded even in an empty room. Apparently, well, not often, but I mean, it does happen now and then, and you know, not often actually, but it does happen. But I'm trying to think of something that would be provable all the time, like sonar and like film. What reacts with electricity? Well, you can get those Kirlian photographs. That's Kirlian, named after a Kirlian, Professor Kirlian or some man called Kirlian, who lived, I think it was in Russia, a few decades ago. You can look at Kirlian photographs. That does show energy fields around things. Everything has some kind of energy field, really, because it's all made of atoms that have got electrons whizzing around in them, and electrons are energy, you know. So that's where you get the energy field from. But so that's quite interesting. That image is an interaction with an object. You at least get the outline of an object, you know, whether it's a square Lego brick or a leaf. If it's a square Lego brick, it tends to be just the outline you get and nothing in the middle. You know, if it's an object, you tend just to get the outline. If the thing is alive, you can get quite interesting images in the inside of it as well, like throughout the whole surface of the leaf, not just around the edge of the leaf. So that does show some interaction with electricity. Maybe you need to photograph a whole room like that. It's not really a photograph. Photographs are for light. Photo means light. It comes from the word photon. So this is more an electrograph, but they don't call it an electrograph, but it would be called an electrograph, sensibly. Yeah, so what would you use to image with electricity? What reacts with electricity? That's what I'm trying to think of. Maybe aluminium does. Maybe if you had a little aluminium shower rigged up on the ceiling and lightly had a fall of aluminium to the ground, you might get sparkling where there was a presence or something, you know. I think it burns easily or something in powder form. Quite dangerous, actually. You might explode the whole room and give yourself severe burns all over. I don't know. Right, what would react with electricity to form a picture? What would react with electricity to repel it? I suppose magnetized things would. Maybe if you had magnetic filings and, yeah, I suppose you could have magnetic filings. They might be affected. Yeah. Electricity reacts with electricity, doesn't it? If it's a negative electricity, it would react with something positive. And if it's a positive electrical thing, it would react with something negative. What sort of energy is it? Just electrical energy? Surely it would have some sort of polarity. That might help. What reacts with electricity? Sonar bounces off things. Light reacts chemically with chemicals on the paper. What does electricity do? It did react with that Kirlian photograph thing. The Kirlian thing. I must find out how that works. If you can think of anything that would